The first Varkon boarders forced their way into Cargo Bay 4, smashing through the airlock with plasma cutters. The aliens were monstrous. Tall, armored, with cold blue lights for eyes and metallic talons for hands. They advanced in tight formation, firing shock weapons that sent arcs of electricity skipping over the deck. Marines led by Lieutenant Miles waited in the shadows. When the Varkan passed a barricade of cargo crates, Miles gave the signal. A chef lobbed hot oil at a boarder. A botanist stabbed another with pruning shears. The humans were outnumbered and outgunned, but refused to yield an inch. Explosive gel, rigged from mining supplies, erupted at their feet. As the boarders began to falter, human resistance surged. But outside, 3 enemy ships still circled, and a new wave of boarding pods was launching. Sara gripped the armrest, gaze hard. We're not finished, not by a long shot. In the corridors, injured crew barricaded doors with furniture, while medics dragged the wounded to makeshift shelters. Miles volunteered. I'll lead the EVA team. Give us what we need, we'll get it done. The situation was desperate. Shields were at half, the hull was breached in 4 places, and the Varkan ships were powering up main weapons. We detected a weak point if we can overload our own deflector array and channel it through the auxiliary dish. We could create an EMP pulse strong enough to disable 2 of the enemy ships, but we'll be nearly defenseless for a few minutes. Sara paced the bridge, monitoring enemy movement. The Varkan flagship, perhaps sensing a trap, launched a swarm of drones. The Odyssey's engines roared. The ship shuddered as they dove into the debris, using shattered rocks as cover. 1 remaining Varkan ship pursued, but their own targeting was scrambled. On board the Odyssey, battered crew cheered and hugged as Sara took a rare, shaky breath. The crew was exhausted and battered, but nobody was ready to quit. In the confusion, Marines opened fire with pulse rifles, aiming for the joints and power packs AO had flagged on his scans. The goal: disable their weapons and engines from within, or die trying. The crew watched silently as the shuttle launched, disappearing into the field. The interior was labyrinthian, full of hissing pipes and alien glyphs. The air tasted like metal and ozone. Lynn's team sealed hull breaches with emergency foam, while Dr. Ivanova triaged the wounded in the sick bay, turning the medical bay into a field hospital. Okafor jammed the Varkan's distress beacon, buying precious minutes. The last Varkan ship, crippled, spun off into the debris, vanishing from sensors. As the explosives detonated, the alien ship's engines went dark. We did it. Against every odd, we survived. Ready, all hands. This isn't over yet. The battered crew cheered as the friendly ship pulled alongside, deploying rescue teams and broadcasting. Stand by, Odyssey. Help has arrived. They received medals, but most simply wanted to rest, rebuild, and return to their loved ones. In the aftermath, survivors helped each other out of airlocks and medbay, some limping, some weeping with relief. Dr. Ivanova reported that against all odds most of the crew had survived. It was never just me. It was every single person who refused to give up, even when the universe tried to erase us. No matter how dark the void, no matter how fierce the enemy, humans could adapt, improvise. And when it mattered most, win. Against the Varkan or any who threatened them, the message rang clear through the stars. That's what it means to be human. The fighting was brutal. Reyes, wielding a battered sidearm, fought shoulder-to shoulder with kitchen staff and botanists. The only option was to take the fight to the enemy. Lynn and Reyes raced to the engine room, planting explosives on power relays. They fought through Varkan guards using every trick they'd learned from the earlier defense. Lynn's hand shook as she set the last charge, remembering her lost engineers, but she steeled herself. Sara offered a fleet command. Turned it down, choosing instead to help train new crews in the lessons of hope, grit, and unity. For the Odyssey, she whispered. Okafor triggered the pulse. In the void, 2 Varkan ships flickered, shields dying, engines sputtering. Drones crashed into each other, blind. Sara Holt coordinated every move from the bridge, sweat slicking her palms as she watched security feeds. Meteoroids and plasma bolts streaked past as they crawled over the Odyssey's scarred skin. Lynn, breath misting her visor, led the way. Welding power lines while Miles and a Marine covered her with pulse pistols. We hit them hard, then we run for the debris field. It's our shot. Lynn, we're losing pressure on Deck 6. Sara recorded a ship-wide message, her voice low and unwavering. We're making a stand. Do your part, trust your crew, and we'll see Earth again. When the smoke cleared, only a handful of Varkin lay twitching on the declive but defeated. He found a pattern. Every border squad was relaying data to a command ship if they could break the signal. The borders would be less coordinated. Lynn's voice crackled back through static, holding it together, but barely. Their hacking is everywhere. AO and his science team worked frantically, monitoring Varkan energy signatures. Lynn's fingers bled from torn gloves, as she manually rerouted coolant to keep the core stable. Sara seized the chance. She ordered Okafor to use the Odyssey's own array to jam Varkan signals. Meanwhile, Chief Lynn's engineers fought a digital war against the Varkan viruses trying to disable life support. Just when hope seemed to flicker, Miles and his surviving Marines cornered the last borders near engineering using a jury-rigged arc welder to short out their armor. On the bridge, Sara realized they'd bought precious time. Sara called an emergency council in the ship's war room. AO presented a plan. Lynn frowned. The dish is fried. We'll have to fix it manually outside the hull while under fire. Sara knew the risks, but saw no better option. Preparation was chaos. While Lynn's engineers built a portable power coupler and reconfigured the shield emitters, Miles handpicked his EVA team half Marines, half engineers. The EVA team exited the airlock under fire. Inside, Okafor and Reyes worked the controls, timing the overload with split-second precision. Just as the last cable was fused, the main deflector surged with blue-white energy. Sara yelled, "Now! Full thrust, take us into the asteroid belt." But there was no time for celebration. The final enemy ship was closing, and a new threat was about to appear. Safe for the moment in the asteroid field, the Odyssey's crew worked feverishly to repair damage. Scoured the enemy's comms, and picked up a chilling transmission. The remaining Varkan ship was preparing to call reinforcements and launch a boarding missile-on explosive-packed capsule designed to break straight into the bridge. Sara knew they were out of time. "We have to finish this before the reinforcements arrive," she said. She devised a daring plan. A strike team would use a maintenance shuttle, sneak close under asteroid cover, and board the Varkan ship directly. Reyes, despite injuries, insisted on joining Miles and Lynn. Okafor provided schematics from intercepted Varkan files. The boarding was chaos. The strike team cut through the Varkan's hull, emerging in the dark, frigid corridors. Miles led from the front, pulse rifle at the ready. On the bridge of the Odyssey, Sara watched the enemy ship flicker as her team sabotaged its core. The strike team barely escaped, riding the maintenance shuttle back through a hail of shrapnel. Sara called the crew to attention, pride and relief mixing in her voice, but AO's screen flashed with a new alert. "Captain, something's emerging from hyperspace." Sara's jaw tightened. The new arrival was not Varkan, but a Terran Navy destroyer, drawn by the Odyssey's distress beacon. Sara let out a breath she'd been holding for hours. The Odyssey's legend spread quickly. Sara, Lynn, Okafor, Reyes, Miles, and every last crew member were hailed as heroes. When asked by the Admiral how she'd held the ship together, Sara replied, "The Terran Council named the Odyssey the first of a new class of explorer defender ships. And for generations, the Odyssey's story inspired all of humanity. Humanity will never surrender. We are the storm."